Hi and welcome back to the channel. Please remember to subscribe if you want to see more videos on movie novelizations. Now, this novelization is one of my favourites, and it serves as an important reminder of what this movie could have been. So the next book I have is Explorers by George Gipe, published by Pocket Books. The novelization of the film, directed by Joe Dante, starring Ethan Hawke, River Phoenix, in debut roles, and probably the biggest case of whatever happened to, starring Jason Presson as well. The first hour of the movie is 80s teen movie fried gold, in my opinion, with a good build-up to one of the biggest disappointing endings of a movie. The story focuses on Ethan Hawke's character Ben Crandall, an enthusiastic sci-fi geek who has a reoccurring dream about a circuit board. Ben draws the circuit board diagram on a piece of paper and gives it to his friend Wolfgang, played by River Phoenix, who builds the circuit board and connects it to his computer, which then creates a bubble of energy that they can travel in. The characters are nicely balanced to carry the story, with superb acting from the three teens. You have Ben, the dreamer, Wolfgang, the serious science geek, and the loner Darren, the school outcast from a dysfunctional home life, who is good at mechanics and has access to his dad's tools. All characters whose traits are reflected in our own childhood friends, if not ourselves. So, what was wrong with this movie? Well, during filming, Joe Dante was told by the studios to bring the release date forward to the summer and edit what footage he had, resulting in something of a semi-rough cut of the final film. This led to scenes not being shot and parts of the story missing, with about 1.5 hours of footage on the cutting room floor. Worse was to come as the movie flopped at the box office, crushed between Back to the Future a week before and the weekend of the Live Aid concert. There is a poignant interview with Ethan Hawke and the effect this had on him as a young teen. It was an embarrassment to him during his time at high school, with him being picked on, and with it leaving him with a feeling like he'd let everyone down. It almost did not get a VHS release, but thankfully it did, and it now has something of a cult status. Author George Gipe did a good job of focusing on the earlier part of the movie, with less attention paid to the last quarter, and focusing instead on the tension and the characters. Sadly, George Gipe's life was tragically cut short a year after the movie was released, when he was stung by a bee and suffered an allergic reaction resulting in his death. The book does feature the comical Looney Tune aliens of the movie, indicating Gipe did receive a recent draft of the script. Because I grew up in the UK, my experiences of this movie differed to somewhat of those in the USA may have seen. I saw this movie on UK television back in the late 80s, which screened the international TV version of the film. This turned out to feature 2 extra scenes which viewers in the United States did not initially see. My favourite scene in the movie is when Ben and Wolfgang are walking to school, depicting a typical 80s suburban street, to the sound of Jerry Goldsmith's Sticks and Stones score. Removing the scene is a near travesty, as it not only gives explanatory parts of the story where Ben passes Wolfgang the circuit board blueprint, but also introduces us to the bully Steve Jackson, giving us the reason why Wolfgang isn't at school that day and why Steve is fighting Ben. It also has a scene with the boys pushing the tilt-a-whirl ride cart back from the junkyard, back to the creek, with it running uncontrollably down a hill. I purchased the UK DVD version some 20 years ago, only to find the US version, with the Paramount boasting the deleted scenes on the back cover, the 2 scenes which, in my opinion, should have been in the movie anyway. Both scenes are included in the book. Thankfully, Netflix has been streaming this international version, TV version, on its services when it's available. Shout Factory released a Blu-ray version with some further deleted scenes, which a link is given at the bottom in the description below. These 2 are also included in the book. The great thing about reading novelizations is that they allow you to enjoy these deleted scenes within the context of the movie story, and not as those grainy, separate cuts that you get on DVDs. The novelization features more on Ben's home life, his dreams of going to space camp and crazing his parents' permission to go. Also featured is Ben's down-to-earth Mr. Perfect, a popular older brother, who is elected to the student body and is forever bragging about his achievements. To give you a clue as to how much was removed from the film, the drive-in scene with the dating couple watching the Star Killer is in fact meant to be Ben's older brother. We get better background to the characters, including more on Darren's perspective and further details of his troubled home life. He is also more sceptical in the book, especially during his initial scenes with Wolfgang in his basement. There is a missing scene from the movie, which was only partly filmed and features in the novelization noticeably. In the book, after Ben falls from Laurie Swenson's window, from spying on her, and his awkward conversation with him, he is then invited to her birthday party. At the party, they all have a miserable time, with Wolfgang showing his spiteful side and tricking the others into doing things that they would not have ordinarily done. Like Ben prematurely telling Laurie how he feels and giving her a ring, leading to her rejecting him, and also Darren into acting like a sleaze with another girl who then hits him. Wolfgang apparently did this so that they can return to focusing on the Thunder Road and the science of discovery. They all leave the party early and have a break-up, only to reunite when they have the shared dream together to include Darren. The character of Charlie Drake is pointed out more greatly as having the same dreams as Ben, and that he had the same ones as a child but could not understand a complex circuit board schematic, nor he had access to a computer interface, and alludes to the reason why he is a helicopter pilot, as flying over LA at night was as close as he could get to those circuit board dreams of his youth. All this was meant to be stated more heavily in the movie, with Charlie eventually meeting the aliens too. Now, back then, if you were as geeky as I was, you can catch a look at some of those possible deleted footage as stills during Darren's trance scene on board the spaceship, if you use the pause button and freeze each frame. One scene features the boys walking through school smiling and confident, which I think is related to the scene at the end of the novelization, just before they meet Steve Jackson for a final scene. The other freeze frame features that of Charlie Drake smiling in what appears to be the creek, with a purple light behind him. This refers to the final scene when the aliens begin communicating with the boys again through their dreams. Some other minor differences include a fourth connector on the circuit board, but Ben is unable to make it out. This is likely a reference to Dick Miller's character Charlie Drake. There's also a scene with Darren setting off the fire alarm when escaping Steve Jackson and his gang. A dinner table scene in which Ben pushes his dad's patience over going to space camp, and a discussion with his mother is also seen in the book as well. And this happens just shortly before he climbs out of his window to lay on his roof and gazes at the stars. Another scene features Darren at home trying to work out how Ben and Wolfgang made the holes in the books in the basement, believing that they are pranking him. This leads him to eventually go for a long walk, which leads him to Wolfgang's house. This then explains why, in the movie, he suddenly appears when the sphere runs amok in the neighbourhood. A scene which was perhaps cut because of budgets or lack of time was Ben and Wolfgang experimenting by putting Heinlein the mouse in the energy sphere and suspending him for several seconds before Wolfgang gets a guilty conscience and decides against animal testing at such an early stage. The issue of lack of oxygen within the sphere is also better thought out and weaved into the novel. A sense of time is also added with the construction of Thunder Road taking around 2 weeks. The scene at Darren Dad's shed is expanded upon, in which they make a new circuit board which is explained as a CO2 filter which creates oxygen and solves their oxygen problem inside the sphere. But as we see in the movie, it's turned up too high, which obliterated the shed. They also encounter one of Wolfgang's little brothers, Ludwig, who finds the Thunder Road and is caught playing in it. The ending to the novelisation differs from the movie, with Steve Jackson getting his comeuppance when he steals a device given to Wolfgang by the aliens as a prank. This causes Steve's clothes to shrink and rip in the school hall, leaving him near naked and having to hide in the toilet, thus mirroring Wolfgang's nightmare he explains to Ben early in the movie. The novelisation also ends with Ben in his bedroom watching TV and not at school as it is in the movie. Instead, Charlie Drake appears on his TV and talks to Ben, telling him to go to the living room, which is where he finds the Thunder Road with Darren and Wolfgang already inside it, when they are all transported to the new complicated circuit board dream. The movie was meant to have a grand cosmic ending. Screenwriter Eric Luke states that the ending was meant to have them go to Mars to discover a dying alien race, with the last survivor passing them a gemstone which contains the record of his civilization before its death. Eric Luke, as you may know, has a short cameo as Darren's teacher, issuing results of a test. It was Dante's idea to feature the aliens as just merely kids, like the gang themselves, who watch TV and goof around just like them. It is safe to say that this ending severely disappoints, partly the comic and lazy feel. But also the build-up during the movie was so well done that you wanted some sort of payoff at the end. I think Eric Luke's idea would have been much more satisfying, but it was his first screenplay and he was swept up in the thrill of filmmaking, aiming to please everyone. Another idea Dante wanted to include was the human race linked via a single consciousness. And today I think the only movie to do this is The Exorcist 2. So in conclusion, this book is almost certainly better than the movie. It's an absorbing read into life as an 80s teen with good characterization and story. It is a must-have for fans and one for those who are probably perhaps disappointed too. I think the movie can be summed up by Darren's own line within the movie, where he says, "I hate to say it, but this isn't how I thought it would be at all." Before I go, I once saw on the internet a synopsis for a sequel for the movie. I have yet to re-find it, but I thought it was well thought out, if I remember rightly. The story, interestingly, centres around the character of Darren, who was worse affected by meeting the aliens and sinks into a form of depression, failing to get his life back on track and begin mirroring his father. I sadly cannot remember the rest of it, and cannot find it again on the web. If anyone has any idea where it is, please add a comment below. There are some rumours that this movie is going to be remade as a TV series. I have many reservations about these remakes as they seem to miss the mark, and TV series these days often feel bloated and strung out for too long. I do, though, hope that it features Eric Luke's original ending rather than Joe Dante's. I suspect it will not feature the all-Mayo trio either. I just wish Hollywood would produce something original instead of remakes and sequels to classics which often fall short of the mark and disparage the source material. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and also leave a comment below with your thoughts, especially if you own the new Blu-ray.